She was just 14 years old. She was a daughter, a schoolgirl, an only child, a child with dreams. But one night in Kwale, police officers stormed her home and left her dead. Authorities called it a raid, a shootout. The rest of us called it murder. And tonight, we revisit the killing of Kwekwe Mwandaza and expose the cover-ups that could not bury the truth. This is the girl they killed and claimed that she had died of cardiac arrest. Now, this is one story that the media broke, and were it not for the press, this one, trust me, is the story that even the accused knew was going nowhere. I am Brian Obuya. This here is not just another murder story on a television near you. Once again, this is Murder Tapes. Our daughter, Kwekwe. Let it begin. Kwale County is a land of rolling hills, quiet villages, and winding roads that lead to the coast. In Kinango, life moves slowly. Families live off the land. Children walk long distances to school, and nights are often broken only by the sound of crickets. But not in August 2014, when that calm was shattered. Just after midnight, armed police descended on this quiet village. Their target, they claimed, were dangerous criminals. But when the dust settled, it wasn't a criminal they carried out of the house. It was a 14-year-old girl, Kwekwe Mwandaza.
Zani, the mother of the young girl shot dead last month.
This thrusting the little-known village into the public limelight for the next couple of years. Thanks to dedicated journalists at the coast who did nothing but protect the sanctity of life and sought accountability for a crime that had been committed thousands of kilometers away from civilization. At the material time, Veronica Gitahi, a police officer of about 25 years standing, was the head of the Division of Criminal Investigations team in Kinango. She had served there for barely 2 months before the incident. And then there was Police Constable Isam Ze, who was under the command of Veronica Gitahi. These were just 2 police officers in a group of many more. Following what police called a spate of murders in the Kwale village and vicinities, the establishment launched an operation to apprehend suspects in the wee hours of 22nd August 2014. It was a joint team of 13 criminal investigation officers and others from the administration police who had been assembled by Veronica Gitahi and deployed to flush out dangerous knife and machete-wielding criminals. The team was divided into 2 groups. One group was led by Sergeant Said Mwinyi Bakari of the administration police. It had 5 police officers. The other was led by the DCIO, Veronica Gitahi herself. Isam Ze was in this group. He was armed with an AK-47 rifle of serial number 4914030. That rifle had 30 rounds of ammunition. Boss and the team leader, the DCIO, was armed with a Jericho pistol of serial number 40305198. This pistol had 15 rounds of ammunition. And because the villages were vast and the criminals were many, on its part, Veronica's team went to the home of Salim Chakazani, one of the suspects who also happened to be an uncle of Kwekwe Mwandaza. It was a rainy and pitch-dark night, and police officers had to use their torches to navigate their way through the village, ambushing and arresting suspects whom they linked to murder cases. Only that, they only arrested one person that night. At exactly the same time, Kwekwe and two cousins, about 9 years old, were asleep in Salim Chakazani's house. Hussein Zani is the elder brother of Kwekwe Mwandaza's mother, Umazi Zani, and the wanted suspect, Salim Chakazani.
Sana watu polisi wengi, lakini wale mpiga risasi ni polisi wawili tu. So mpiga risasi mimi wakati nilikuwa siko nyumbani, nilikuwa niko town. Siku hiyo nilikuwa siko Inango, nilikuwa niko town. Town Mombasa. Hapa Mombasa, sehemu za Bamburi. So nikapata simu kwamba kuna polisi wengi nyumbani usiku, lakini mtu mpiga risasi. Lakini pia wameondoka naye. Sasa sikufikiria, nikafikiria pengine kuondoka naye pengine ndio Makadara, Coast Hospital, Majendo Hospital kuu Coast. So Kwekwe nikampigia simu tukaenda kukutana. Pema Kwekwe alikuwa town pia, alikuwa hayuko huko Kinango. Tukakutana tukaenda mpaka Makadara. Tukaulizia emergency, hakuna mtu. Tulizia kuna mtu pengine kwa sasa anakuja usiku, wakasema hakuna. Tukaenda mochari, ambapo hakuna. Sasa baadaye tukapata simu kwamba mtoto amepelekwa mochari Kinango district hospital. So tulivyokuwa Kinango tukapata kwa mtoto kweli huyu, maana alikuwa hana kichwa kabisa. Yaani kichwa kilikuwa kichwa chote kibomoka kichwa kabisa ubongo wote. So sasa wajeni ile kesi ya mara ya kwanza, wajeni pendi nilishtuka. Yaani sikujua tufanye vipi kwa sababu katika familia yetu hatuna mtu mkubwa kwa mtu mlilia. Sasa kupiga hesabu sasa ikabidi yule mtoto tukapumzike sisi. Lakini sijui kwa vipi akatoa muhuri akajua. Watu muhuri. Sasa ndipo tunaenda kumchukua mwili kule, watambura sema mtoto asizikwe. Abaki Mwanza. Watu wa muhuri. Wajua kwa tuli sijui mashirika watu wa muhuri. Sasa sema watu wa muhuri watu gani? Nikasema sasa ni sawa. Sasa tukipiga hesabu tufanye vipi? Sasa basi acha turudi mimi kadi zangu Mombasa. Mombasa sasa nikaenda ofisi ya KTN Standard Media. Nikampata Uchami. Uchami kamaelezea story vile ilivyo, akaniambia nipe namba ya chief. Nipe namba ya chief na sub chief mzee wa mtaa. Tukamwambia kama hiyo. Akaniambia pia ataka namba ya mkubwa wa polisi wa Kwale. Mimi kama mimi siwajui. Akasema kesi kimetokea wapi na baki Kinango. Akaniambia basi acha sitafute. Sasa nilipokuwa natoka kuna mmoja mmoja akanifuata, jamaa mwingine akanifuata, anambia sasa wewe una shida mzee, na bena shida. Nikamweleza anambia nilifanya hivi, usitegemea hapo KTN peke yake, nenda kwa Nation Media Group. Ushelewa, sasa nikaenda kwa Nation Media Group. Walikuwa Nkrumah Road. Nikaenda kumpata jamaa ta Makwera. Nikamweleza story yote, akaniambia basi fanya hivi, nipe namba ya chief, sub chief, mzee wa mtaa, nini. Sasa ilikuwa hizo namba ilikuwa sina. Nikapiga simu brother yangu, mdogo wangu, akatuma hizo namba, nikampatia jamaa Makwera. Sasa jamaa alipotafutafuta. Hata kuna wakati ule chief alipigwa simu na Makwera akamtukana. Chief wetu ambao ujeshi location yetu ni Matate sub location, chief hata Chale, mjeuri sana. Hasa huyu Makwera akanipigia simu jioni. Akaniambia vipi uko nyumbani? Niambia niko nyumbani. Ananiambia fanya bidii umpatie maganda risasi. Ukipata maganda risasi ya picheni. Maka hiyo ndio shahidi katika kesi. Wajeshi mtafanya kama hiyo. Sasa kuna mdogo wangu aitwa Nduria. Ile maganda akachukua. Alipochukua maganda akanayo. Pia muoga pia kwa sababu unajua ni kesi cha kwanza. Akanayo, Nduria akanayo. Tukapiga Tomuhuri. Watamuhuri akasema njoni wapi? Msije town, njoni Jomvu. Wewe pia wewe ni waoga. Uje ni mambo kesi za polisi. Wewe pia ni waoga. Sasa kuna jamaa mmoja wa Muhuri aitwa Fray Sauma. Yule Nduria na mimi tukamkabidhi maganda. Fray Sauma alikuwa Muhuri jamaa wa Muhuri. Jamaa very intelligent jamaa.
This is the man Hussein is talking about. He still works at the Muslims for Human Rights Organization and recalls the case with unbelievable precision.
Walikuwa wameenda operation kumchafuta mjombake Kwekwe. Ilikuwa inasemekana mjombake Kwekwe Mwandaza ni jambazi, anatakana na polisi. Sasa wale wakaenda kumchafuta kule Kinango usiku wa manane. Kufika pale, yule mama ambaye ni Veronica Gitai alikuwa anaongoza operation, alikuwa kama DCI. DCD ndio in charge wa ile DCIO. Sasa sijui aliteleza akapiga, alikuwa amekoka wakinyemelea, aliteleza, risasi ikatoka ikapiga pap. Wale polisi wengine wakafikiria wako under attack. Sasa hawakuwa na makini wale polisi. Wale wajanja wale polisi walichukua cover, lakini huyu Isa na huyu mama hakuchukua cover. Yule Isa akaanza kupiga risasi. Kumbe wanapiga mtoto. Walifikiria wako under attack.
Sasa wale polisi wakuja waligonga kwa nguvu. Sio polisi walivyorafu. Wagonga kwa nguvu maana sio ipate information kwamba yule jamaa mbaya sana. Sasa unajua polisi lazima waogope pia unajua polisi. Jamaa fulani mbaya sana, kwa hivyo chungeni sana jamaa. Wao pia na kukalati, wao pia binadamu na wao pia. Usielewa. Sasa polisi piga mlango kwa nguvu. Usielewa. Yule mtoto akashtuka ni mtoto. Sababu yeye mkubwa. Akamwambia mtafuta mjomba wangu hayuko, hata kama waona pengine namdanganya. Ungeni akifunga mlango ungeni muangalie, akamshuta hapa kwa kichwa mtoto. Akamshuti. Sasa alipomshuta alijua tu itakishia hivi. Sio polisi wamezoea. Wanaua na lakini sasa hii ni Mungu tu. Ilipuka mbaya sana yani.
The two surviving cousins emotionally told the court that Kwekwe played with the officers not to harm them and that her uncle was not home.
Nilikuwa nimelala, tukasikia mlango umeanguka, ndio tukaanza kuamka.
Silia twende pale pale ulia.
Tukaamka. Akasema akaja hapa kwa baranda akasema nataka nini hapa ndani kama mjomba hayuko, yuko kazini.
That testimony happened in the village where the shooting happened, when the Martin Muya court chose to visit the scene of crime, turning it into the court for that particular day. The main contest before the Martin Muya court was on whether Mwandaza's uncle Salim Chaka was home or not.
Lakini chanzo Mchale, tasibisi la Uislamu wa polisi. Polisi walikusema kushuti tu. Ushelewa, lakini chanzo Mchale chief wa Matatu location. itwa Chale. Hiyo ndio alifanya pale polisi wataka kufungwa ni Chale tu. Kwa sababu information urongo. Unajua urongo una propaganda inafanya bomba zaribika. Hasa ndio propaganda mpaka polisi wataka kufungwa.
Veronica and Issa maintained that they knocked on the door 3 times, identified themselves as police officers, and requested the occupants to open the door and turn on the lights. In response, the officers say they heard a scraping sound against the wall, that someone was sharpening a panga. And then there was a male voice threatening to kill the police officers. That man, police say, is the suspect they came to arrest, Salim Chakazani. Veronica says that it was at that moment that she shot twice in the air as the man ran out of the house. In the process, she stumbled and fell down. And when she was assisted by Issa Mzee to get up, she found Kwekwe had been shot, and next to her was a panga.
Mtokeza kishika panga kweli watu siku hizi. Kwanza mtu akiona polisi tayari atatemeka hivi. Hata kama shikila kila atatemeka. Atakuwa na gani mtoto ashike panga hivi apige polisi utakuwa gani ndugu yangu. Hebu fikiria, unajua kuna mwingine unajidhalilisha.
Achoka alikuwa ndio county commissioner wa Kwale. Wakatoa statement ya polisi sasa script hiyo. Kwa polisi wa under attack, mtoto wa kike alikuwa amebeba panga 11 years old. Hata kama amebeba panga wewe utampiga risasi namna hiyo? Hawezi kumcontain. 14 years old. Amebeba panga hamwezi kumcontain. Basi wakatoa script ya urongo, hata wao polisi walikuwa wanajaribu kuattack polisi na panga. Ndio wakamkabidhi, wakampiga, akafa. Ikawa ni script ya urongo kabisa. Mimi mwenyewe nikaenda na kulikuwa na mtangazaji mmoja Ferdinand Mondi ambao tulienda pale sasa ile kufuatizia tukapata cartridge moja imesaki ndani ya nyumba na zile zingine ilikuwa shaletewa na uncle yao kina Hussein hao wameniambia ndio hii. Mimi nikaenda nikakabidhi aipoa.
On his part, Issa Mzee said that when his boss Veronica stumbled and fell down, he tried to cover her, but someone cut his gun with a panga. It was at that point that he fired his gun. Now, so deep was the conspiracy running through the police at the coast that even the evidence of the armorer, Sergeant Adam Boru Shore, who testified as prosecution witness number 13, said that Issa Mzee's gun had a panga-like cut. Adam Boru further told the court that Veronica Gitahi returned the ammunition assigned to her without 2 rounds, while Issa Mzee had spent 3 rounds. In total, the 2 police officers had fired 5 rounds that night.
Galiwa ikapatikana risasi, ingine zikapelekwa ballistic, ikafatiziwa, mwisho they were charged. Lakini ili narrow down kwa watu wawili tu, ambapo risasi ya nani ilitumika, risasi ya yule Issa ndio ilipata lipiga yule mtoto, lakini ile nyingine ambayo tulipata pale ilikuwa na yule mama. Sasa ikawa pia yeye ameingia kwa hiki sanga kwa sababu risasi yake ilipatikana kule ballistic.
Ni maskini. So kweli hatuna kitu kabisa. Ni maskini kabisa. Shele hata huyo gitaa huyo diseo hata kuua mtoto kwa sababu alijua familia hajiwezi. So jua familia hajiwezi mwalizwa. Shele jua tu kuna kitu kitatokea lakini baadaye ililipuka. Disabu matoa magazeti Nation na Standard ndio mtusaidia sana.
Back to the scene of the shooting. Officers say they tried to administer first aid to the 14-year-old girl in vain, ultimately recovering her body, put it in one of the police vehicles and transported it to Kinango Hospital. A post-mortem examination was conducted the same day, that is the 23rd of August 2014. The body was released to her family through the area chief Samson Chale Joho, and curiously, it was buried the same night.
Sasa wale walipanic wale polisi, wakampigia chifu wa ile area. Chifu anajua kulikuwa na shida ya mamake Kwekwe na babake Kwekwe walikuwa hawapatani. Babake Kwekwe kupigia walikuwa wako pamoja, mamake Kwekwe alikuwa anafanya kazi huko Mombasa kwa nyumba ya huko sehemu za kama maid. Sasa mamake Kwekwe ambaye Kwekwe kashazikwa, wale polisi mwanzo walimchukua wakamtupa msituni yule Kwekwe, ile kupanic. Lakini baadaye wakafikiria hii itakuwa namna gani? Wakampeleka Kinango mochari pale. Yule mtu wa mochari akasema hapana, hii ni kesi kubwa, hatuchukui maiti kama hizi controversial, pelekeni wapi? Makadara. Hawakupeleka Makadara, kulikuwa na ile panicking. Basi Kiislamu yule babake Kwekwe akaingia box, akasema zikeni, mtoto ni wangu, akapeana consent. Chifu naye akapeana burial permit. Wakamzika.
Dadangu na bwanake walikuwa wamepatengana tangu yule mtoto mdogo. So yule mtoto alipokufa, wale polisi, wajua yule shemegi yangu Mandaza na Chale yule chief, wajua first cousins. Sasa yule Chale chief alimpata Mandaza baba Kwekwe. Akamwambia, akamshawishi, akamwambia ile kesi towe. Mwambie baba kisa tutaki. Serikali yakataa.
This was the continuation of a conspiracy and a cover-up that was supposed to see that the murder of Kwekwe Mandaza remained silent.
Lakini sasa ikawa ni pressure, bwana, tunataka kujua ni kitu gani kimemuua huyu mtoto wa kike, mtoto mdogo 14 years old. Sisi Muhuri pamoja na mashirika mengine IMLU tukasema hapana, twende tukapate nini? Court order. Tukapata court order tutowe ile body.
In September 2014, about 2 weeks after the killing, Umazi Zani, through the assistance of the Independent Medical Legal Unit, IMLU, and advocates Haminwa and Harun Dubi, moved the court to exhume her daughter's body for proper post-mortem examination. Caving into public pressure and the involvement of the IPOA, an exhumation order was issued on the 12th of September 2014.
Tukapatiwa court order, tukaenda tukatarisha kijiji, na unajua ni mambo ya ajabu sana kufufua maiti. Watu hawajaifanyika kama yale. Ikabidi kijiji, very expensive venture. Kijiji itarishwe, watu wakuja kuwafanyia counseling, waelezewe. Ingawa Duruma alikuwa anakataa, wasema sisi mtu kutolewa hapa ilikuwa 1950 ngapi, hatujaona kitu kama hiyo, hakuna kitu kama hiyo, ashazikwa. Ilikuwa sasa committee pia imereject, hapana, haifanyiki, mila tamaduni hairuhusu.
Kila mmoja ana fikra zake. Ni sheria ifuate mkondo wake. Mambo ya mila, sijui dini kaikando kabisa. Kwa sababu hii mambo ya mila na dini inafanya mambo mengi, yaani inafanya haki nyingi zinapotea. Lakini yacha haki ifanye kazi yake.
Lakini walielezewa, walichukua muda, counseling, wale wakatayarishwa watu kijijini, tutakuja kufanya hivi. Basi tukaja na Jessel Duol, yule ambaye ni pathologist, walikuja na profesa mwingine hapo pia, mama, nadhani ni Emily. Tukaenda tukapata court order, tukaexhume ile body. Ile body ilivyotolewa, ikaangaliwa, ikapatikana risasi nyingine, zikapelekwa ballistic, ikafatiziwa, mwisho they were charged.
On the same day, pathologist Dr. Emily Rogena conducted a second post-mortem examination on the body of the deceased. That autopsy found that Kwekwe sustained bullet wounds in the head and chest, and in her opinion, the cause of death was a head injury due to a gunshot from a high-velocity firearm.
There's also another injury on the chest, but this was a gray zone. It means that the bullet just passed, but never got into her body. We also confirmed that she didn't have any other disease in her body because we did a full post-mortem.
It's very difficult to determine the range of injury, and that is where the work of the ballistics comes in.
Now with that, the autopsy had put Issam Zeh as the only person who had an AK-47 that fired that night at the center of the killing of Kwekwe Mandaza. Kwekwe Mandaza's killing was not without the usual police cover-ups. The first person to attempt the cover-up were the police officers on site. They carted away her body in the dark of the night, only for a cause of death to be written down as cardiac arrest. When the body was released, the area chief took part in the mischief. How could a burial be conducted at night? Take 2 seconds to imagine that. After all, who was Kwekwe Mandaza? Who knew her? And just like many killed away from civilization, her death was to fade with time. The second person was the police boss in charge of the CID Kwale at the time, Onesmus Towet. Towet said that he went through the police inquiry file and found no evidence of murder, as there was no element of malice aforethought. You see, Towet had first and foremost taken a role that did not belong to him. That was a decision that could only be reached by a court of law. Upon finding that there was no element of malice aforethought, Towet says he recommended that a public inquest be conducted. He forwarded the file to the DPP. It was his view that IPOA interfered in the investigations of the case by launching an independent probe. That inquest process was supposed to kill this case once and for all. By now you know that most inquests are used by police to escape accountability. In the immediate aftermath, police investigators conducted an inquiry and recommended a public inquest, effectively posing criminal culpability. In parallel, the IPOA launched its own probe and concluded that there was sufficient evidence to charge the officers. The Director of Public Prosecutions agreed, and on October 9, 2014, Veronica Gitahi and Issa Mzee were charged with murder. It did not help the officers that ballistics tied 4 spent cartridges to their guns, or that their cell site data undercut the claim of a threatening adult inside the home. Nor did it help that a second autopsy had documented both the trajectory and the lethality of the rounds. After a full High Court trial in Mombasa, 23 prosecution witnesses and 2 defense witnesses, Justice Martin Muya found that the state had not proved murder beyond reasonable doubt, but the officers were criminally liable for manslaughter. On February 15, 2016, he sentenced each to 7 years imprisonment.
Kusema kweli, haki ilipatikana. Kwa sababu hata miaka 7 ni mingi. Hata ungefunga kifungo siku moja watoke, waje ni polisi wale bwana. Si raia. Yaani serikali ifunge polisi. Ngumu sana. Hata ungefunga siku moja ushelewa kesho watoke. Kwa haki ilipatikana.
Police Constable Issa Mzee and Inspector Veronica Gitahi appealed. In their appeal before William Ouko, Martha Kome, and Justice Kathurima, at the time sitting in the Court of Appeal, Issa and Veronica justified the shooting of Kwekwe on the grounds that they believed that they were under attack. They were on official duty and duly introduced themselves in an area that was notorious for murders, that it was dark and rainy that night, that a suspect was arrested in the vicinity the same night, and previously, a female police officer had been attacked in the area and dispossessed of her firearm. They insisted that a male voice in the house threatened them. They heard the sound of a scraping panga and that a panga was indeed recovered in the house. And Issa Mzee's firearm was cut with the panga. With that, they had portrayed the area as crime-prone and dangerous. But, just like the Court of Appeal, we are convinced that the alleged criminal Salim Chakazani was not in his house that night. Not because of the call data finding, but the fact that his own evidence was not shaken by the defense. But more baffling is that Salim Chakazani was never subsequently arrested, if indeed he was the dangerous criminal killing people in Kwale as police had portrayed. Yet, this is the same man who was readily available and called by police as a witness in the trial. The other thing that will never make sense is the scrapping sound of a panga being sharpened against the wall. Was a panga really being sharpened against a wall of mud? Taking the police assertion to be true that Kwekwe had a panga, Murder Tapes has never understood how the group led by Inspector Veronica, with no less than 8 police officers armed with AK-47 rifles, could not disarm a child or whoever else they assumed was threatening them with a panga without shooting that person in the head and chest. The Court of Appeal threw out the appeal and upheld the 7-year sentence. The next struggle was to fight for compensation. It took 11 years for the advocate Lucy Mulago-led petition to be settled. Mulago, at the time acting under instructions of Imlu, had argued that the family ought to be compensated for loss and trauma. Kwekwe was Umazi Zani's only child. The woman had developed complications leading to the removal of her uterus. This meant she couldn't hold another pregnancy, only for Veronica Gitahi and Issa Mzee to show up on a rainy night, kilometers away in Kinango, and kill her only child.
It is not straightforward. That's why it even took a lot of struggle, because what has to be proved first is indeed there was a death, and that this death was caused by a state agent, say a police officer, you're in custody or you're killed, and the death was intentional. Yes. So it is not that straightforward. It is an area that is developing, and we are happy with such decisions. I say it's developing because of players like Imlu. Imlu is an NGO, non-governmental organization. With people like Imlu, they've come to ensure that state-perpetrated torture, there are checks to ensure these people who are tortured and killed, they are compensated, and courts are looking at best practices from other jurisdictions, because it is difficult. The first thing is evidence.
Kwekwe's mother has never recovered from the loss. She's been in and out of hospital. In fact, even by the time Murder Tapes is conducting these interviews, she had gone for treatment in Tanzania.
Magonjwa yote ni mtoto wake. Ile magonjwa yote ni mtoto wake. Magonjwa yote ni mtoto wake. Ilimwafect sana. Sana.
With a 5 million Kenya shilling compensation, little as it is, the Zani's family feel at least something has been done. Umazi, with the help of his brother, has set up a rental house, raking in some 24,000 Kenya shillings per month. This was the first time I was hearing that the government has agreed to pay a common man compensation awarded by court.
I wouldn't say it was easier, because this is 11 years later. The death was in 2014. Compensation has happened in 2025. So I don't think that is the definition of easy, because even having interacted with the mother, Umazi Zani, it took a lot on her health, having to wait, trips to the Attorney General, trips to Nairobi, going to court, the government always promising we will pay, we will pay. Eventually they paid, and it's something that is on record. 5 million was paid, all inclusive. And at least I'd give it to government. Once we agreed and we went to court and reported, payment was done within 60 days, which is, that is where I'll agree with you, which is not usually the case, because government, they say they will pay, we sign, they will pay, but payment comes maybe after a year. So after we agreed, yes, they took a very short time to pay. I'd say what compelled them, after we had gone to court, you know, court is back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I told the State Council, I told them, let's just have a discussion so that you see the petitioner, the mother to this child. We sit on a table, and instead of me telling you the law and telling you everything, just hear from her. And Umazi came, we crossed the road. The AG's office is right across at NSSF building. And I think that was the Damascus moment, because she spoke her heart. Sometimes when an advocate or when a lawyer represents a case, you know, it becomes a battle of laws. It's this, what this advocate is saying against what this advocate is saying. But I told them, let's have a human touch. Just hear the petitioner herself. And they had her, and we managed to reach a consensus of 5 million. Of course, we had asked for more, but intricacies of government. If you are to be given 10 shillings now, or I'm going to give you 20 tomorrow at noon, and you're not sure if we'll wake up, sometimes you better take the 10. That's what we did.
Former police officers Veronica Gitahi and Isamze have served their 7-year jail term and have since left prison. By the time of airing this story, Kwekwe Mwandaza's mother, Umazi Zani, is still receiving treatment at a hospital in Tanzania. The weight of the loss of a child has never left the small village in Kwale. The trauma of the violent night experienced in that month, in that year, is yet to go away for the two cousins of Kwekwe Mwandaza. Kwekwe Mwandaza never lived to see her 15th birthday. She became another child caught in the crosshairs of a system where lethal force is too easily justified and accountability often buried with the victims. For months, officials tried to frame her death as an accident, to bury her in silence, to reduce her life to a line in an inquest. But every cover-up unraveled through autopsies, through forensic science, and through oversight that refused to look away. Her story is not just about one child in Kinango. It's about how a nation confronts the abuse of power by those sworn to protect. And until every bullet is accounted for, every raid justified, and every officer held to the same law as the rest of us, the fight for justice will remain unfinished. I am Brian Obuya. See you on season 3 of Murder Tapes. Good evening.